MotoGP 2026 once again delivers unexpected drama. In the middle of an intense championship battle, one big name is back in the spotlight: Marc Marquez. However, this time it is not because of brilliant victories, but because of the lingering shadow of difficult times that have not fully disappeared. While other teams continue to improve, especially Aprilia Racing, which is looking increasingly solid, the pressure on Marquez is growing even stronger. The question now is this only a temporary phase, or a sign that the path back to the top is slowly slipping away? Let's discuss. Marc Marquez's journey over the past few seasons has been anything but easy. A series of serious injuries that once stalled his career, the non-instant adaptation to a new bike, and the rising level of competition in MotoGP have forced him to work much harder compared to his dominant years. Every step he takes now is no longer just about speed, but also about consistency, confidence, and maintaining peak physical condition. Even though signs of improvement have started to appear early this season, many still believe his performance foundation is not yet fully stable. One MotoGP analyst even stated that Marquez's situation is still not completely safe. This reflects the idea that the recent performance gains are not enough to fully erase doubts. In other words, behind the improving results, Marquez remains under constant pressure in every race, from team expectations, increasingly competitive rivals, and the demand to prove that he has truly returned to his best level. In this situation, even the smallest mistake can have major consequences, potentially putting his position back under scrutiny in an increasingly tight championship fight. One of the main factors making the situation even more complex is the rise of Aprilia Racing. The Italian manufacturer is no longer seen as a midfield filler, but has transformed into a serious competitive force capable of challenging the dominance of the top teams. Their progress has not come overnight, but through a long process of bike development, improved team structure, and increasingly mature, well-calculated race strategies. In MotoGP, consistency is everything. One lap speed is important, but what separates great teams from average ones is the ability to maintain performance across every session, from free practice to qualifying to the main race. In this area, Aprilia has shown a significant leap. They are not only fast, but also stable, making fewer mistakes and maximising every opportunity on track. This situation is clearly a real threat to riders like Marc Marquez. To return to the top, he is not only required to perform perfectly as an individual, but also to withstand pressure from teams that are currently on an upward performance trend. This challenge is far more complex compared to previous eras, when competition was not as tight and as dynamic as it is today. Marc Marquez remains a world champion with vast experience and a proven steel mentality in extreme situations. He understands how to handle pressure, read race situations, and take advantage of even the smallest opportunities. However, the challenge he faces now is very different from his dominant years. Today, competition no longer comes from just one or two main rivals, but from almost the entire MotoGP grid, which has become much more balanced and competitive. In this kind of environment, the margin for error is extremely small. A slight loss of concentration, a late braking point, or a wrong racing line can immediately have a huge impact on track position. It is not just about losing one place, but potentially dropping several positions in a matter of seconds. This intense level of competition is exactly why Marquez still cannot fully breathe easily, even though his performance is beginning to show clear signs of recovery. Beyond that, the pressure does not only come from the track, but also from the massive expectations that continue to surround his name. Every race weekend now feels like an examination, not just to fight for victory, but also to prove that he still belongs at the very highest level. The season is still long, but with such intense competition, every round seems to shape the direction of the championship. The road to victory is open, but it is clearly not going to be easy or without obstacles. Meanwhile, an interesting story is also coming from Turkish rider Toprak Razgatlioglu, who is currently going through a highly challenging adaptation process in MotoGP. His move to the Premier class is not just about stepping up in competition level, but also about a fundamental change in riding style, technical approach, and far more complex physical and mental demands. Toprak openly admitted that he experienced frustration while trying to understand the character of a MotoGP bike, which is very different compared to the machines he used in the Superbike Championship. Differences in electronic systems, braking style, and how the bike responds to rider input force him to start from scratch in many areas. This situation is a reminder that even riders with great talent and achievements still need time to adapt at the highest level. This process is also an important part of shaping him into a more complete rider. With hard work, team support, and growing experience in every session, Toprak is gradually starting to find a better rhythm and understanding. According to Toprak, the biggest challenge is not just speed, but understanding the overall behavior of the bike. MotoGP machines are known for their highly complex technology, with extreme sensitivity to various factors such as throttle input, braking technique, and cornering balance. All of these elements require a completely different approach. During his adaptation process, Toprak also received valuable input from Andrea Dovizioso. The experienced rider shared insights on how to understand the bike's character on a deeper level. This adaptation is not only physically draining, but also mentally demanding. Toprak has to keep learning in every session, from understanding the bike's characteristics, to how the electronics work, to adjusting the riding style he had built in his previous category. Every small detail that may seem insignificant can have a major impact on track performance. He admits that he does not always feel comfortable on the bike, especially when he has to force his body and racing instincts to adapt to limits and responses that are completely different from what he was used to. This makes every session an intense and challenging learning process. Still, Toprak chooses to stay and keep improving. He understands that this difficult phase is not a failure, but a natural part of the transition process to the highest level of racing. For him, every struggle he faces now is an important investment for his future in MotoGP, which demands patience, consistency, and continuous adaptability. Now, Toprak's focus is on finding the balance between his natural riding style and the characteristics of a MotoGP bike. With his experience and ability, there is still plenty of room for improvement. His journey is proof that transitioning from Superbike to MotoGP is not simple. It requires a complete adaptation process, technically, strategically, and mentally. MotoGP 2026 presents two major stories: the pressure on Márquez and Toprak's adaptation struggle. On one side, a world champion is still trying to break free from the shadow of difficult times. On the other, a new talent is fighting to push beyond his limits. With Aprilia continuing to rise in strength and the competition becoming even tighter, one thing is certain: this season will be full of surprises. The question now is, can Marc Marquez return to the top and silence all doubts, or has MotoGP already entered a new era without the dominance of a legend? Share your opinion below.